Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. This is Vinod. In this video, I'm going to talk about tier 1 architecture in the context of Azure, right? So how tier 1 application can be deployed across the Azure cloud, right? And how it is going to be helpful. Now, you might be wondering who does use tier 1 application, right? And there are different use cases, different capabilities or different things that anyone who would be using Azure or maybe any cloud providers, but I'm going to talk more on the Azure context for the tier 1 application or tier 1 architecture applications, right? And mostly the architecture levels, there are three different architectures: tier 1 architecture, tier 2 architecture, and tier 3 architecture. So I'm going to talk on tier 1 in this video, and I'm going to create separate videos on tier 2 and tier 3 so that you get an understanding about it as well, right? So what is tier 1 architecture, and how we can create or deploy a tier 1 architecture application in Azure with the different services, and also I'm going to give you an example of it, right? So let's go ahead and start. So Azure provides the flexibility and scalability of the platform, which helps us to design application based on different architecture tiers. As I said, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, right? And the tier 1 architecture is going to be a application which is going to rely on a set of virtual box or virtual machine, right? Which has everything, including user interface and business logic and data storage. And you might be wondering why tier 1 application has data storage or maybe business logic, because it doesn't make sense when we have an application where we don't have the capability to handle a large amount of data or large amount of transactions, data moving from one to another and vice versa, and all of those stuff, right? So tier 1 application is going to be standing and sitting on a particular virtual box or particular virtual server within Azure. And then it is going to be sitting on particular platform, be it Ubuntu servers or Windows or whatever it is. It could be containerization as well. So basis on the requirements and basis on the needs that we would like to deploy something or maybe use that for a particular use case, right? And now there would be a question, or there would be use cases. So where this simple tier 1 application is going to be used, or what are the use cases, right? So what the use cases would be: a personal blogs website, right? The other could be small websites where it is going to be just keeping on updating the web pages with the data, maybe content which are used for reading purpose, or maybe those contents are used for how to documents and all those stuff, right? It can also be used for proof of concept, right? Which is called as POCs, right? And this application on the tier 1 architecture is going to be really helpful for people or the users, mostly for the people who are into technical field. It could be developers or system administrators or DevOps engineers or architects, and everyone who are going to work on the different deployment methods or mechanisms, right? And these are the different folks who is going to use that all, right? And then it is going to be simply created and deployed in a particular one box or particular virtual machines and a virtual environment within Azure context. But similarly can be deployed on AWS or GCP, as well as any other cloud platform wherever we wanted to do. And the last option would be to deploy the same in the local environments as well, to test and see how that application works, right? So even local environment can also be used effectively to test and see the code executions and how code works effectively, whether it has some bugs and everything, and that can be worked upon and resolve those errors, right? So this is going to be very simple, but still very important to know and understand how Azure services can be effectively used for this tier 1 architecture application. So there are few services I'm going to talk about, including Azure App Service, which is going to host web application or API service or APIs that we are going to call out on that particular web application, right? And how that application is going to be used, right? The second is going to be Azure storage, which is again optional because we are going to we are going to host an application which doesn't have, or maybe it doesn't have the data storage needs like blob storage or table or queues or anything, right? So this is going to be optional. Even if we wanted to do that, we can do, but that is, or that may not be needed. So again, basis on the need and requirement. And the third would be uh, Azure databases, right? So this is going to be also an optional tier or optional way for us to attach a database to the applications to store the data, retrieve data, and make the CRUD operations, right? Create, read, write, and update and delete. All those are the operations that we can do on the database side, right? So there are few steps that I'm going to talk about to implement this tier one architecture on the Azure side. So first is going to be Azure App Service to host the web application or APIs, right? And then we would be selecting the runtime stack, which could be either .NET or Python or Node.js, right? And then we would be deploying the application directly using GitHub or Azure DevOps or manual deployment, right? So these would be different ways that can be used to deploy an application to the Azure. And then again, optional for simple storage capability as well as database connectivity. If we are going to use any of those capabilities, for maybe we wanted to use a lightweight storage, and then we can configure blob storage or tables or queues or any of those which are required to transfer data and files, and maybe there's some data movement happening, right? And the database connectivities to execute certain queries and then happen the transactions of data movement and everything together. And the most important part is, and interesting would be to see the examples, right? So the example of tier one architecture would be a simple Azure App Service hosting a static website, right? So static website is going to be a simple web app. That application is going to be a simple, maybe as I said, it could be a blog website, it could be a maybe personal website, and it could be a website which is going to be created or on a particular web application for proof of concepts, right? To test how the POC goes, how capabilities are hosted in the cloud, how we wanted to bring on the capabilities of Azure services for single tier, right? And there could be such project where or maybe you are working on a project where you and your client or your project needs that capability for maybe a KB perspective, which is a knowledge base articles, right? Or article as well. Documentation can be shared within the company or inside and outside, or maybe external customers or users, right? And the second example could be which has a dynamic content requirements where we can integrate Azure Blob Storage or a static file hosting, and then the static file hosted can be read upon the requests from the end users on the static websites, right? So this is all about the application tier on a tier one architecture, right? Not the application tier, I would say tier one architecture on the context of Azure for applications, right? So even if you use any of this capabilities or any of the applications like personal blogs, a small simple websites or proof of concepts applications, then this is going to be a really great way for you to test and execute and see how it can be used, right? And you will get a lot many learnings about it and how you can leverage more other capabilities of this as well. So yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you will like it. Please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to watch other videos all about Microsoft 365, Azure, and FinOps, right? So yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.